everything happening in Washington, D.C., it can feel like trying to drink from a fire hose, can't it?
Oh, absolutely. There's just so much noise, so much activity on Capitol Hill.
Right. And how do you, our listener, figure out what's actually important? The key decisions, the big debates, when there's just this constant stream.
It's tough. And what's interesting is how fast things can change up there, how quickly the focus shifts. And you see these deep disagreements pop up, even on things that might look straightforward at first glance.
Well, that's exactly what we're trying to do here today. Cut through that noise for you.
Yeah.
This deep dive is basically your shortcut to understanding what really mattered in Congress on July 15th, 2025. Think of it as your Congressional Digest.
Right. We want to unpack the core arguments, the clashes, but also, where they actually managed to agree on things.
Yeah, and help you understand not just what happened, but why it's significant for you, for the country. We'll look at the big budget fights, the disaster response, immigration, key appointments.
All the key stuff. Our mission, really, is to lay it out clearly, connect those dots so you can see the bigger picture and the implications.
Okay, so let's dive in. What was the absolute center of attention, the main event on the Hill that day?
Without a doubt, it was the president's proposal to cut about $9 billion from the budget. It's called the Rescissions Act of 2025.
$9 billion. Okay.
Yeah, and it's not just the number. I mean, it really gets to a fundamental split over what's wasteful spending and what's, actually in the national interest.
And Republicans, they argue that $9 billion, while it sounds like a lot.
Right, they emphasize it's tiny compared to the whole budget, like 1/10 of 1%.
But they definitely use strong language to describe the spending they wanted cut. Things like wasteful, I think even spending porn was used.
Yes, that term came up. They pointed to specific foreign aid examples, things like climate projects, electric buses for Rwanda,
Okay.
net zero cities in Mexico, teaching about environmental racism, things like that.
Really specific examples.
Very specific. Also, vegan food in Zambia, pride parades in Lesotho, even money for Sesame Street in Iraq came up.
Wow. And the argument was?
The argument was, look, none of this helps farmers back home or families struggling here, that money should be used to rebuild our nation.
They also went after public broadcasting, right? NPR, PBS.
Yeah, big time. The argument being, with streaming, TikTok, whatever, we don't need them anymore. Plus, they claim they push a left-wing ideology.
Mentioning the NPR CEO's comments, too.
Exactly. And Senator Barrasso had that quote about foreign aid, asking, how does that keep Russia and China at bay?
Okay, so that's the Republican side. What about the Democrats? How did they push back?
They called the cuts devastating. Their counter was, this isn't really about saving money, especially when, as they put it, Republicans just gave billionaires their largest tax break in modern history.
So focusing less on the waste argument and more on the impact.
Exactly. The impact on everyday Americans. They were really concerned about SNAP-E, the food stamp program.
Right.
Saying cuts would decimate food assistance for 42 million Americans. Kids, seniors, people with disabilities.
That's a huge number. And the quote about a hungry child cannot learn.
Yeah, very powerful. Highlighting the risk to automatic school meal enrollment, too. Could leave thousands of kids without meals.
And they brought up individual stories.
They did. One lawmaker shared a story about Elizabeth Morales, a constituent, who called SNP a lifeline after she lost her job unexpectedly. Put the human face on it.
Sure. And what about Medicaid? Was that part of the debate, too?
Yes, big concerns there as well, especially for military families with kids who have special needs, seniors, low-income children, pregnant women.
But there was some disagreement on the actual impact.
There was. I mean, Democrats raised these alarms. But one Republican lawmaker did say their reading of the bill showed those groups would still be protected. So different interpretations of what the bill would actually do.
Okay, so that covers the domestic side. But these cuts, particularly to foreign aid, Democrats argued had global consequences too, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They argued foreign aid isn't just charity. It helps prevent conflicts, stops global diseases from spreading. Basically, it enhances U.S. security in the long run.
And benefits the U.S. economy.
Yeah, they pointed to programs like Feed the Future, saying it helps American farmers by promoting U.S. products overseas.
And the geopolitical angle. China and Russia.
Right. A major warning was, if the U.S. pulls back, China and Russia are just waiting to step into that vacuum, gain influence.
Senator King, the independent, had some strong words on that.
He did. He called USA out an essential part of our foreign policy, crucial for stabilizing unstable regions, extending America's soft power, building our brand.
And that quote from General Mattis.
Powerful quote. if you don't fund the State Department fully, then you're going to have to buy me more bullets. Really frames it as a security issue.
Democrats also defended specific health programs.
Yes, PEPFAR and the Global Fund programs fighting HIV/AIDS, TB, malaria. They highlighted the success, the bipartisan history going back to George W. Bush. And Senator Welch made the point. Prevention is way cheaper than treatment down the line.
There were also concerns about education funding being held back.
Yet, nearly $7 billion approved by Congress for public schools that Democrats said the administration was withholding. They warned about delays, cuts, teacher layoffs, especially hitting rural areas.
And State Department staffing cuts.
Also a big worry. Potentially 1,300 staff fired. Democrats called that a giant blow to our national security, weakening diplomacy.
So, underlying all this fighting about specific programs, there's this bigger constitutional issue, the power of the purse.
Exactly. This is fundamental. Democrats were adamant. The Constitution gives Congress the power to decide spending, not the president.
And they felt these cuts were bypassing Congress.
Completely. They saw it as undermining checks and balances. The president deciding to rescind funds without Congress's explicit okay.
That's a big deal.
It's huge.
Yeah.
It's not just about this $9 billion. It's about who controls the budget. Could set a precedent, fundamentally shifting power away from the legislative branch on spending.
They warned it could break trust, make future deals impossible.
Yeah, potentially shredding the whole appropriations process. Senator King called it Congress basically giving up, abdicating its constitutional power.
Okay, so while all that intense budget fighting was happening, a completely different, very tragic event was also demanding attention: the flooding in Texas.
Yes, truly awful. Catastrophic flooding hit central Texas right around the 4th of July.
And the human cost was just devastating.
Immense. Dozens killed, including 27 people at Camp Mystic, the children's camp, children and counselors.
Just terrible.
Overall, more than 100 dead, over 160 still missing at that point. Just heartbreaking.
And the response from lawmakers, Texas representatives.
Yes, lawmakers like Mr. Roy, Pfluger, Williams, Crenshaw, they expressed deep sadness, obviously.
Yeah.
They also praised the Trump administration, Secretary Noem, for acting quickly, declaring a disaster, getting FEMA and the Coast Guard in there.
There were stories of heroism, too.
There were. Dick Eastland, the owner of Camp Mystic, apparently died shielding campers. Just incredible bravery. They also mentioned how important public radio was for getting emergency alerts out, especially rurally.
But there was criticism of the administration's response as well.
Oh, yes. Democrats like Mr. Schumer and Senator Welch were very critical. They accused the administration, particularly Secretary Noem, of failing Americans.
Why? What was the specific criticism?
They pointed to what they called Secretary Noem's $100,000 signature rule, basically a new directive that required her personal sign-off for FEMA spending over that amount.
Potentially creating a bottleneck during an emergency.
That was the allegation, that it caused critical delays. They mentioned thousands of unanswered FEMA calls, a big drop in FEMA's response rate. Some even called for an investigation into whether this cost lives.
So even in a tragedy, the political divisions were right there.
Starkly visible. It became another flashpoint over government competence, accountability, and those same checks and balances concerns.
Okay, let's shift now to another topic that's almost always simmering in Congress: immigration. Still deeply divided.
Very much so. Deep partisan divides remain. Republicans are really focused on border security as national security.
Meaning stricter controls?
Yeah, reducing illegal crossings, holding undocumented immigrants accountable if they commit crimes. They gave President Trump credit for a drop in border arrests.
And how did they view refugee programs in this context?
As wasteful. The argument again being that money should go to securing the border here, rebuilding the nation, not helping refugees.
And Senator Kennedy's comments linking immigrants and crime.
Right, saying cities are overwhelmed by immigrants and the crime they bring. Pretty strong rhetoric there.
In the Democratic perspective.
Focus much more on the humanitarian side and concerns about policy impacts. They worried about mass deportation policies that don't distinguish between criminals and, people just trying to build a life here.
Arguing it hurts families.
Hurts families, hurts rural America, which often relies on immigrant labor. And they were very critical of cuts to religious groups that help legal refugees resettle, calling it an attack on religious organizations.
Senator Kaine shared a personal story.
He did, about his church, helping Congolese refugee families, really trying to emphasize the human side, the role of faith communities.
So it's really a clash of fundamental philosophies.
Absolutely. It's border policy, yes, but it taps into these deep-seated differences about national security versus social responsibility, America's role in the world. Always divisive.
Okay, besides the big spending fights and immigration, Congress was also busy with nominations and quite an explosive debate about transparency.
That's right. Confirmations are a key part of the Senate's job.
And one stood out for its bipartisanship.
Yes. Luke Pettit for Assistant Secretary of the Treasury. Confirmed 69-30. Pretty strong bipartisan support.
Why the cooperation there?
He got praise, particularly from a Republican Senator Hagerty, for working across the aisle on rules for digital money. So finding common ground on, financial regulation.
But other nominations were more contentious.
Definitely. Joseph Edlow for Director of USCIS, the immigration agency. That was a much closer 52-47 vote. It brought all those debates about deportation and refugees right back to the surface.
And Anthony Tata for the Defense Department?
Also controversial.
Yeah.
Confirmed as Undersecretary of Defense, but there were real concerns about past inflammatory statements he'd made and worries about politicizing the military.
Senator King spoke out about that.
He did, warning about the danger of the military becoming a political arm of the president. Raises important questions about civil-military relations.
And there were quite a few other appointments moving through as well. Ambassadors, UN roles, judges.
Yes, a whole slate. Mike Waltz for UN ambassador, ambassadors to places like Portugal, Sweden, Singapore, Greece, key UN positions, district judges, undersecretaries for defense intelligence and for terrorism financing. These don't always make headlines, but they're critical roles for policy implementation, national security, the judiciary.
Okay, and then there was the Jeffrey Epstein files debate. That sounded pretty fiery.
Oh, it was. A major debate erupted over whether the government should release all its records related to Jeffrey Epstein.
Democrats pushed hard for release.
Very hard. Lawmakers like Ms. Scanlon, Mr. Veazey, Mr. Khanna, they basically accused Republicans of protecting rich and powerful donors.
Strong accusations.
Yeah, saying no one is beyond accountability, demanding the truth. Mr. Khanna made this appeal to choose the people and America's children.
How did Republicans respond to that?
They pushed back. Figures like Mr. Jack and Mrs. Houchin, they called it a tactic, basically a distraction to block other bills, like cryptocurrency regulation and military funding.
Questioning the motives and timing.
Exactly. Questioning if radical leftists could be trusted with the files, suggesting that timing was just politically expedient, really highlights how political strategy and fights over accountability play out.
But there was a slight crack in the partisanship there.
There was. Interestingly, one Republican actually broke ranks and voted with the Democrats on the amendment to allow the release. A small thing, but notable.
So despite all these intense clashes, spending, immigration, the Epstein files, there were still spots where they actually worked together.
Absolutely. It wasn't all fighting all the time. Even amidst the constant push and pull, you find common ground.
Like what? Where did we see cooperation?
Well, we mentioned the human compassion after the Texas floods. That was largely bipartisan. There was a bill to secure communications networks. Huge bipartisan support.
Okay.
An agriculture bill for the Farm and Ranch Stress Assistance Network, introduced together by a Democrat and a Republican.
Public health, too.
Yeah, the TIC Act reauthorization for Lyme disease and other tick-borne illnesses, sponsored by a Republican, a Democrat, and an independent.
Bipartisan support for veterans.
They worked together on a resolution for National Post-Traumatic Stress Awareness Month.
And we already mentioned Luke Pettit's confirmation.
Right. Strong bipartisan vote there.
Yeah.
And even something like a law to fix our forests, increasing timber sales to prevent wildfires, which also helps the industry that saw a bipartisan agreement.
So even on the Epstein files amendment, that one Republican vote.
Exactly. Even in a really heated fight, sometimes shared interests or maybe just common sense issues can bridge the divide, at least for a moment.
So taking all this in, the fights and the moments of agreement on July 15th, what does it tell us? Why cooperate sometimes and fight tooth and nail other times?
Well, there are a few big drivers, I think. First, just fundamentally different ideologies, right?
Right.
Republicans leaning towards fiscal conservatism, smaller government, national security through strength military, border. Democrats prioritizing social safety nets, global engagement, diplomacy, what some call soft power. That basic difference shapes so many policy fights.
And that power of the purse battle we talked about.
Crucial. That's not just policy. It's a constitutional fight over who controls the money, Congress or the president.
Yeah.
Democrats see it as vital for checks and balances.
Rhetoric plays a role, too, how they talk about these things.
Definitely. You hear Republicans using sort of populist appeals, fighting wasteful Washington spending for the common person. Democrats often use more like elite warnings, raising alarms about dire consequences for vulnerable groups or national security. The language itself can deepen the divides.
And just the general atmosphere, trust or lack thereof.
Yeah, that's huge. When you have accusations of political tricks, breaking deals, it just erodes any goodwill and makes future cooperation that much harder. Leads to gridlock.
And just a quick note for you, our listener, well, we've talked a lot about spending. The sources we reviewed for this deep dive didn't get into a specific July 2025 farm bill.
Right. That specific legislation wasn't the focus of the discussions covered in our sources. The major money debates right now are centered on these other areas, the rescissions, disaster aid, foreign policy funding.
So you can really see how a single day, July 15th, 2025, it's like a snapshot of American governance. Intense arguments, real tragedy, surprising bits of unity, and this constant battle over priorities.
It really underscores how dynamic it all is. It's always a negotiation over values, over priorities, over the power to set the country's direction. And all these details we've unpacked, specific cuts, confirmations, they all weave together into how policy actually gets made and how it affects real lives.
So as you think about all these clashes and collaborations we've discussed today, how they impact communities and the country, what stands out to you? What was the most surprising or maybe the most impactful piece of this Congressional Digest for you? How do you think these decisions might shape things in the months ahead?